I've got something pretty cool to show you guys. As you can see, these are brand new AAP01 aluminum upper receivers. These were just released by a small Taiwanese custom shop called GBL. I say released, but actually they've only made a small number of these. There's a limited run so far, and I was only able to grab a few by messaging the guy and asking for what he had left over, so he was able to sell me a few of these sort of blemished ones they had left. From my understanding, their relatively small run of this is already all spoken for, and I'm not even sure what stores it's hitting. But hopefully he'll be doing some more runs of these in the future. So I thought I would show off what I've got here. So up until now, there haven't been many aluminum upper receivers for the AAP01. There's of course AEC Zone, Black Mamba, and then of course Narcos Airsoft came out with a aluminum replacement of the original two-part body, if you will. This isn't the Narcos one, this is a stock one, but the Narcos one, same as this, is a two-part design. The Narcos one has some nice cuts here in the front, and of course a replacement for the rear receiver made out of aluminum. This one, however, is a single piece upper, a lot like the Wii Galaxy, and of course like the actual Ruger Mark IV that it's based upon. Besides the colors here, black, silver, red, and blue, he also made gold and tan colors, though I didn't pick up any of those. For each color too, they had 3 variations of the cuts on them: the ovular cuts, the circular cuts, and the triangular cuts, as you can see. These are also all based upon actual variations of the Ruger Mark IV, which sort of the whole AAP01 and the Wii Galaxy are largely based upon. So I think this is a really interesting offering. If you saw sort of the comparison videos between the Wii Galaxy and the AAP01, a lot of them said that the AAP01 really performed better, but the Wii Galaxy has a really nice aluminum upper receiver. So an AAP01 plus one of these is a good way of getting perhaps the best combination of aesthetics and durability by the aluminum, as well as the performance of the AAP01. Unfortunately, I can't tell you the price for these because the overseas price is yet to even be determined, which suggests to me probably that he sold all of his first batch just within Taiwan, but hopefully he'll be sending some future batches overseas and everyone else can get a hand on them. With that having been said, I want to go and I'll take a closer look at one of these and then put one on my nice new stock AAP01 here. While I'm at it, by the way, I just wanted to emphasize that, like I said, these ones I got are blemished. There's some very slight blemishes on the anodization. So keep in mind as I'm doing this and as you see this, that this isn't necessarily a perfect final product. This is a blemished version, and then also future runs will probably have that improved. As well, no guarantees that this will fit perfectly with this sort of custom products, especially with these kind of first limited runs. Sometimes you have some minor issues or some minor machining marks. So keep that in mind as I go through this and I give you sort of the small details of this. First off, let's do a basic comparison with the stock upper. As you can see here, naturally it's going to be fatter up front because it's not a two-part design and doesn't have the separate outer barrel. The main body itself also appears to be a bit larger. This is about just under 32, whereas the stock one is 28.5, so about 3.5 millimeters different there. Looking on the inside, of course, you need the internals to be largely the same here. It looks as though you can see here, whereas here, see how this is flat until you get the cutout for the bolt release. Here it's actually got a little bit more of a cutout here, so it might have a little bit more of a gap there. We'll see exactly how that looks when we put it on the gun itself. Other than that, it looks quite nice. Of course, you have lots of good lightning cuts here. Machining wise, a really small gripe is that on this first run here, there are some lines here, which this is probably from the machining. It's hard to even see on camera, but it's visible in person. There's a little bit of lines here, and overall looks quite nice. Let's see how the weight difference is. A stock AAP01 upper with the outer barrel and front cap is 59 grams, whereas one of these with a front cap is 161.4 grams. This one, of course, has bigger lightning cuts here. Let's take a look at what the other ones are like. 170, so actually 9 grams different. 176, actually more of a difference than I thought. So there is actually a 10 to 15 gram difference between the different styles. This one, of course, being the lightest, this the second, and this the heaviest. Other than that, things are largely as you would expect. You have, of course, the required cuts and screw holes here in order to fit everything. As I was going through, you may have noticed, however, down here that there's a bunch of screw holes and a set screw. And I'll show you why that is. This is actually one of the cooler features of the gun, I think, is that this front cap is not fixed. This front cap goes on threading internally, the threading down to about half of this here. So you have a fair amount of play here. How this works is you, of course, screw it in here, and then you have all these screw holes because you have a set screw here. And then in order to lock that in place, you go and put the set screw down, presumably, of course, where the flat part is. If you really need to have it somewhere else, you probably could. You just need to be careful not to do it too hard and wreck your threading there. But it's definitely intended to be in the flat part. This is actually a really nice feature. There's two primary reasons why I like this. One is because you can take tracers like this and the older 14mm threaded tracers, which have sort of a sleeve where the threading is. A lot of newer tracers, by the way, have telescope threading. Like this is the Ace-Tech Brighter C. This is the Ace-Tech Blaster here, you can see. And they have telescope threading, which goes inside, which lets you fit things flush into it. However, even if you have an older tracer, due to this being adjustable, you can screw this in here, and then you can screw this guy in to be nice and flush. So even with older tracers, which don't have the flush threading, or it's telescope threading rather, you're able to go and screw this in. The downside is it will be sort of visible here, but unless people are literally looking on the inside of your gun through these lightning cuts, you have the option of having this cool flush look with basically any 14mm threaded tracer. The other benefit of this IC actually is that in a lot of places, of course, people want to use their AAP01s on indoor fields or CQB or various close range game formats. But by stock, the AAP01 has a 129-ish millimeter inner barrel. That makes the shoot actually quite hot. And the stock AAP01 will actually go over the joule limit or whatever restrictions you have in a fair amount of indoor fields. With this, however, if you want to, you can go and you can take a shorter inner barrel, stick it in here, and then still have it properly stabilized. You could also potentially do something like have that and then also have a tracer by screwing this all in with a shorter barrel, having this over here, and then having a little barrel extension to make sure you get threading on the outside. There's some variations you could do there. But having the flexibility to change the distance of your front cap here is a nice little innovation which can be very useful. Unfortunately, this isn't quite big enough to fit any tracers all the way inside and have them flush. Internally, this is 24.2-ish millimeters, whereas basically every major tracer, Brighter C is 27.8. X-Core-Tech is, I think, 27.4. The lighter S is about 27 point. Is about 27 exactly. So unfortunately, all of your major mini tracers won't quite fit into here. The other thing I wanted to highlight was actually even this one here where there's big lightning cuts. It's going to be quite sturdy because let's look here. It's almost 3.8. It's almost 4 millimeters thick here, which is actually pretty thick for aluminum. This is, by the way, 6061 aluminum. It's a nice quality aluminum. So you're going to have this. The walls are very thick. It's going to be very sturdy. Of course, it's a little bit heavier than the stock, but not too heavy. Adds about 100 grams-ish. And then you have that nice adjustable front here. Now let's go and let's try putting this onto a gun. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take off this upper. And I'm going to put the whole upper aside before we take out the internals and such. And I'm going to take this upper and I want to check the fitment of this as is and make sure everything is as expected. So here it goes in the front, of course, and then push it down the back. Takes a little bit more force than I'd like to get it all the way down in the back. And let's see here. It's a little bit more of a gap than you really want to see. I may have to do a little bit of hand fitment to get this perfectly down here. I think that gap looks like probably about 0.5 millimeter-ish, a little bit less. This is 0.45 millimeters, as you can see. Yeah, it fits. I have to push a little bit, but about 0.45 millimeters, so less than 0.5 millimeter. It is not a large gap, but there is a little bit of a gap between the upper and the lower there, and I had to push it in. It looks like it just barely rubs against the trigger bar here. So it's quite dark and perhaps difficult to see here, but it looks like the trigger bar just barely rubs against the inside of this over here. The other thing I've noticed is that over here actually there's a little bit of a gap behind here. So here on the hammer group housing, you'll see there's this little protrusion here. And then here there's a cutout for that. I say that cutout is probably about 0.5 millimeter, if that, too far back. And then if we open this up, we're gonna see here. So you can see here a little bit where there's some metal where the anodization has been worn off slightly because they have to force it on a tiny bit. So it works okay. You get the same here as well, some slight stuff. So it looks okay and it fits right away. You just have to push a little bit harder. And then we have a tiny, tiny bit there and then a tiny bit larger gap there. And that's literally 0.5 millimeter. It's a very small amount, something that maybe you can go and fix yourself if it bothers you. But it fits out of the box. I actually have more of an issue potentially with this guy here. As you can see, there's a little bit worn down there, and where that is, I believe, is, can't see any similar wear on this, but what's happening there is this is rubbing ever so slightly against there. So I'm gonna have to file this down a tiny bit just to make sure that the trigger bar moves fully freely, because of course the trigger moving freely is an important aspect of a gun. But overall, some really minor fitment and not outside of what you expect for an early run of a new product per se. All right, so we've taken out our internals from our stock upper, and let's see how well they fit inside of here. I'm going to put the hop up and outer barrel assembly into here. Let's see if you can see that. So you see here, lining it up with these screw holes here, puts about here. You actually have a little bit more room. You can push a little bit more forward. Try taking those guys and putting these screws back in. Tightening this down a bit, but not too much. I'm not putting a Loctite on. We'll see how it holds up. It feels pretty good. No major wobble. Bolt seems to fit in fine. Seems pretty solid. And finally, let's put the front sight on. It actually came with a separate front sight screw. So for whatever reason, my blue and red uppers came with, I'm just gonna screw this in here to widen the hole a little bit. The blue and red uppers came with a somewhat different front sight screw, whereas, which is a flathead one, whereas the black and silver ones came with a hex screw up front for some reason. So slightly different. Don't know why they bother with that. Maybe there's some specific reason for it. And by the way, after you're done with this, because you don't have these side screw holes you have from the stock outer barrel, you'll have a couple of screws left. So don't be alarmed when that happens. Let's see here. So this one doesn't seem to have room for the O-ring on the stock outer barrel. So let's take that off carefully. And once the O-ring is off, this goes on nicely. Let's screw this into a normal mount, and then here you can see, like here, where there's flat portions. I'm going to adjust it to a sort of normal place and take my little, is this too big? This might be slightly too big, but it works. And screw this down in to tighten that up. And I haven't used Loctite on any of these screws. I'm gonna try them as is for now and see if they work loose. Then screw on the front cap. So this one, of course, has really big lightning cuts, so you're able to see a lot of the inner barrel. This is the stock inner barrel, so it's black. If you want to get sort of a different color there, inner barrel, you can keep in mind the colors that will be visible there if you really want that aesthetic part of it. You can hear the bolt hitting on the aluminum there. Gives a nice little sound. And let's see how this goes back on here. Boom. Not bad. I can feel ever so slightly when it gets back to here, that tiny place where it's just ever so slightly pushed against the trigger bar. I can feel that a tiny bit, but it's not much. It's actually perfectly usable as is. If you want to polish or grind down that little bit, this little guy here, if we can get it in the light. If you want to bring this down ever so slightly, it would probably let the trigger bar move a little more freely. Probably literally about 0.1 millimeters, 0.2 millimeters, a very, very small amount. The front cap does like to come loose a little bit. May need to be somewhat aware of that. Probably nice to put a little O-ring if you've got one around there. In fact, let me see if I can stretch this guy over here. How that works. As is, this leaves a little gap here. But the nice thing is that because this front cap is adjustable, I can bring it down. And this is just a random O-ring I have. This is a 8 millimeter by 2 millimeter thick O-ring. Add something on there to keep it on solidly. Overall, very, very nice. This the way this is set up, it feels like this is not quite tight enough. And then this screw is actually pulling this up a bit. You may want to, it's not bad. It's kind of tends to happen with front sights a little bit. If you want to, you can glue something down there if you're really bothered by it. I don't care so much. So this is a very easy swap. All you really need to do is take the outer barrel unit and then the bolt, and you put them right in. You really don't need to know much of anything about this stuff in order to swap it. Basically, and the only minor gripes I have are about, say, 0.5 millimeters. I'd like this to be about 0.5 millimeters wider. And then I'd like this to be 0.23 millimeters more shallow here, or rather deeper this way, if you will, just because the trigger bar is rubbing ever so slightly there. But this is actually entirely functional as is. Now let's try taking this and putting a tracer on. I actually kind of like the longer look. Let's take a stick lighter R I've got here and put that bad boy on. So I guess what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and put this down like this. And then take my wee little hex wrench and back out the set screw. And then screw this down more. So the downside here is that because this is a rear push button type, I'm not going to be able to operate the button easily. So let's go and put that on beforehand. It's probably on. Just for example. The downside is here, I think that, for example, the lighter R does not have an auto on function. I believe. I need to double check that. Oh, duh. You need to take the set screw and adjust the location of it. Let's also look here. This is going to be very, very hard to see on camera, but I want to find a place where it's flat, like there. My set screw. So now this doesn't go back and forth. So now we get this cool look here with a flush tracer unit. Pretty cool and long looking. It also looks a lot like a silencer. You can of course put a full silencer on this and it will look pretty nice. You know, honestly, I think that it was too tight there by such a small amount that I've already worn it down to fit, basically. And this is the other thing. And sometimes when you have a really small amount, it'll just wear itself into place very shortly. There's actually no real need to amend that, I think. So this, of course, being the end of the video, I just wanted to thank you for watching and let you know that if you've enjoyed this and you've enjoyed getting early looks at AAP products like this, please go and give me a subscribe there and you'll be able to see all the new stuff that comes out of Hong Kong and Taiwan for AAP01s.